Well, again, welcome to our webinar. My name is Annie Beharry. I am the Director of Student Success here at Service to School. We are so glad that you can join us for this 30-minute webinar. We have here Kyle Downey of Cornell University and Montanna Kirven at the University of Notre Dame. They're going to give us some really great information about admissions decisions and what you can kind of expect now that you're at the end of this journey. And this is most applicable, obviously, to folks who are at the end of their college application process, although we understand, and I encouraged a lot of people to come, even if you're not at that point, just so you can know what to expect. Some things before we get started. I just wanted to let you know that we find that Google Chrome works the best with Zoom webinars. So if you're having any trouble, refresh your browser, restart your computer, all of those things that we've learned to do over the last couple of years. This recording will be shared afterwards. Just give us about a week to get everything together and then to send it out. And if you find that this information is very helpful to you and where you are in your process, feel free to share it, obviously, with someone else who can benefit from it. As I said, this is a 30-minute webinar, and we will be doing questions and answers at the end. So I'll be in the chat box. If you have questions, feel free to drop them at any time, and I'll make sure that our presenters address them at the end. And then, yeah, I think that's all I have from my end. I'm going to turn it over now to Montanna to get us started.
Hey everyone, like Annie said, my name is Montanna. I'm from Notre Dame and I'm admissions counselor. I'm going to talk to you first a little about the waitlist process, what that kind of looks like if you have been waitlisted. So the best thing to think about that waitlist process is it is kind of a virtual tie between you and everyone on the waitlist. So when you're on the waitlist, the best thing to do is keep the institution you're waitlisted at informed, keep them updated, let them know you're interested, so that in that virtual tie, you can kind of push yourself above and beyond your peers and the other waitlist candidates and kind of stand out. That's your ultimate goal when you're on the waitlist. So for most schools, those waitlist updates are going to be due April 15th. So that's coming up around 4 days. But really just the best thing you can do is submit a letter of continued interest. So in this letter, really just take the chance to talk about why you want to attend this particular institution you've been waitlisted at. Take some time with this waitlist to just reflect on, why you want to attend this institution, why would be a good fit for you, what things you can offer the school, what they can offer you, your plans, anything that stands out to you about why you would be a good candidate or why this school would be a good fit for you is really the place to, great to include in that letter of continued interest. There's no correct way to do it. It's just be a way of updating the admissions counselors on maybe any updates you've had in your life since submitting your original application. It can be a way to expand, those essay questions about why you wanted to attend this particular institution. So, either one of those are great things to include in that letter of continued interest. You can also update each institution with things like new activities that you're working on, resume updates, things like that. Updated or mid-year grades are also really helpful to include when you are on the wait list, just letting the school know that you are, still trying hard and doing well your current school. So updated and mid-year grades are great to include. Those can be unofficial transcripts. I know at Notre Dame, sometimes we just ask students to screenshot their current progress report and send that along. That can be super helpful. I don't recommend sending in additional letters of recommendation. We really just want to hear things in your voice, and sometimes additional letters of rec can kind of clutter that and drown out your voice in the application. So don't feel pressured to submit additional letters of recommendation. But a good place for that can be if it's someone who maybe knows you in a completely different context, completely different context or voice we didn't hear anywhere else in your application, then you could definitely include that. But not my first recommendation for what to do when you're on the wait list. And then, you should start thinking about, what other institution you plan to call your home, what other university or college do you plan to call your home for the next 4 years? You might not get off the wait list. Sometimes there's not space available and we don't pull anyone off the wait list. And other times we're pulling off people after May 1st, after the date you have to confirm and put a deposit down. So start thinking about where you want to go, where is, you plan to make your home for the next 4 years, and start looking elsewhere is really my best advice, to really start planning ahead, and start planning where you're going to put that deposit come May 1st if you aren't off the wait list yet. So that's my best advice as far as wait list. So that's in that letter of continued interest. Start thinking about your future, and start thinking about where you're going to put your deposit down. Similarly, if you are denied, and start looking elsewhere. If you are denied from the institution you've applied for, most universities do not have an appeal process. So if you really do see yourself still attending that institution, then I definitely recommend looking into the transfer process. You can definitely transfer in, your sophomore year or your junior year, at a different place. If you really see yourself going there and it really is part of, your academic future, that definitely is a different avenue you can take. So you don't feel discouraged if you have been denied someplace. There are definitely other avenues to make that dream a possibility. So if you're interested in transferring, I would suggest, going to the transfer website, maybe looking at courses that are required for your area of study. And then you can use those required courses to just help inform you as you make your course selection, your first semester, your second semester. So you're on the right track to transfer, and make sure you have everything set. You know what the requirements are, what's needed of you, what courses are necessary. And if you are denied, and your future is bright, it's not the end of the line, I promise you. Whether you're going to transfer or go someplace for grad school, or just end up finding yourself at home in a different place you never expected. I know that was the truth for me, and I'm a strong believer in that you will end up where you need to be. So even if the news you didn't receive was the news you wanted, there is still hope. You have a bright future ahead of you, and there will be a way. So just keep that in mind. I speak from experience on that one. But yeah, that's all from me. I'm going to pass it to Kyle to talk about the admitted process, what to do if you received some good news.
Thanks, Montana. I guess I won the coin toss. I get to talk about those who are in the situation where they have to decide between places where they've been offered admission. A little bit about me for starters. My name is Kyle Downey. I'm a Senior Associate Director of Admissions at Cornell. And I did 8 years in the Army Reserves way back when. And now this is my 19th year in admissions, almost all of which is at Cornell. And currently I'm in charge of our ROTC, veteran, and transfer admissions processes here. So if you are admitted to one or more institutions, first of all, congratulations. Really take just a minute to soak that all in, take a breath, recognize no matter what timeline you may have, you do have some time. So there is no need to panic in a good way. Just let it soak in. Think about how excited were you when you opened the offer from X institution or Y institution. So try to eliminate things like finances and some of those other items for a minute and think about just really which offers, if you have more than one, excite you the most. So at its core, which places do you love and you're just really dying to go and see? And so then move forward. And there's no one best way to make the decisions from there, but here are a few suggestions that I have over my time here. One is try to think about the fact that you're going to spend anywhere from 2, if you're a transfer student, to 4 years if you're a first-year student at this institution. You're going to live there. You're probably going to make your permanent home there if you're an independent student for anywhere from 2 to 4 years. So you really need to put as much time and energy and effort into making this choice as possible. Certainly prestige is a factor, and there are a lot of great institutions out there, but don't let that cloud everything as far as your decision-making process, because really it's the factors beyond the classroom that sometimes are going to really shape that experience and the opportunities that a place will create for you. So just try to make sure that you're just slowing it down a little bit, try to go through this process, make good decisions, recognize that it's not so much just about like, okay, well, I want this name on my transcript. Certainly that matters, but just know it's also going to be where would I like to be for the next several years, and who your classmates going to be, and other factors too. So then once you start thinking about that, think about your timeline. For you first-year students who have been admitted, typically you're going to have a May 1st deposit deadline. So you still have more than 2 weeks to make those final decisions. And that is always outlined in your decision letter. So first years, it'll typically say May 1st. That is the national deposit deadline for a regular decision candidate. Mark that on your calendar, work backwards from there. If you're a transfer student, they may have a different date. Often it's going to be, for example, at Cornell, it's 30 days from the date on your admissions letter, because we do rolling notification for transfer students. So figure out what that due date is, and then get your ducks in a row and move forward in your decision-making process. And a few thoughts on that include, what info do you still need to make your decision? Do you need more info about finances? Do you need to know more about student life? Do you need to know where you're going to live? Do you need to know like how your family feels about these offers? Are there multiple perspectives that you have to consider beyond the standard of what a 17 or 18-year-old might have to consider? Do you need to visit? Most places are going to offer some visit opportunities during the month of April, especially for first-year students. And also because you're a priority for almost all the institutions that you may be admitted to or waitlisted at, you're going to be a priority candidate there. And so it's important to ask those questions. If there's only one day when you can visit and there's not already something structured, ask. There'll be a person like Montanna or myself available. Ask the question, hey, I can only come on that Wednesday. Is there any chance that you could talk to me for a little bit? Could I meet one of your current students? Some places will be able to set that up for you. And we want to make every effort to try to help you have all the information you need to make an informed decision. So there'll be emails bombarding you. You'll also have some virtual opportunities, chances to engage with other admitted students. There'll be a lot of things coming at you after you're admitted, regardless of whether you're a first year or a transfer student. What about financial aid? Obviously, that is a factor. So if you're applying for financial aid, make sure you've done so. Make sure your FAFSA is in. Make sure you've done the CSS profile that's required of most private universities. And make sure if you're using benefits, you've done your certificate of eligibility. Make sure you're checking the box, using all the checklists that are in your financial aid checklist, asking questions, sending emails. Again, get all the information you need. Make sure your ducks are in a row so that you can compare apples to apples, quite frankly. If you're thinking about, okay, I have 3 places where I have offers, what is my pecking order in my head? Now let me add in the financial data. Let me add in the student perspective and their opinions on that place. How supportive will the community be? So those are a lot of things to think about and check those boxes and make sure you have all the data that you need to make informed decisions. And also trust your gut as well. It's not just about the data. Ask for help. If you have any questions at all, reach out, ask a current student questions, ask your points of contact throughout the admissions process, ask financial aid. If there is a person working on certification, make sure that you've got everything organized and don't hesitate to ask those questions. We are here to help. And the only really dumb question is that one that you don't ask. You're not an expert. You don't do this all day long. You may only do this once or twice in your entire life. So ask those of us who do it every single day and live it. Use all those resources at your disposal. Now, once you have decided where you'd like to enroll, you're going to have to submit your enrollment deposit or perhaps request a waiver if you're not able to come up with that money right away. That's going to be typically anywhere from $300 to $400 or $500 to save you a spot in the class. And so basically it's a little bit like, making sure that you're serious. We understand that we're not going to drag anyone to our campuses, but we want to make sure that if a student's saying they're going to attend, that they have some skin in the game, so to speak. They have some connection, and that they've put a little bit of money down at least to make sure that they're not going to suddenly just not show up in the fall because we're hanging on to a spot. But obviously, we talked about some of the ways that you can really feel confident in your choice. Then you're going to have housing deadlines. You're going to have to mark orientation and the first day of classes on your calendar. Make sure you're finding out where exactly you want to live. What about transportation? All the different pieces. And so as you're moving throughout this process, we hope you're enjoying it. We hope it's an exciting opportunity. We do understand there's some stress involved as well. But at the same time, what an amazing opportunity you're likely to be presented with. I recognize some of the names of the students on this session as students in our applicant pool. And so, think about the opportunity to attend one of our institutions as an amazing adventure. And, if you attend one place versus another, will it necessarily be better or worse? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, really, there's not a bad option among any of the institutions that really work with service to school. And so you have, really great opportunities to consider. And there's really just a matter of what's the best choice for you, because that may be very different than your friend, for example. So I'll stop there and we'll figure out what questions you may have for us. And certainly, Montanna, if there's anything else you want to add, please dive right in. I'm sure even though I talked a lot, I probably didn't cover everything.
Okay, I really have to second you on all of that. So great job.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I'm happy to wait to see if there are any questions. I do have a couple questions of my own. And I'm sorry, can you see me? I'm not, oh, you can, okay. Cool. So I have a couple of questions based on my own experiences and what I feel our applicants might encounter, as they await their decisions if they don't have them yet. So with regards to the wait list, should an applicant visit the campus in hopes of talking to somebody, or, should they try to get in front of somebody? Does that help or no?
I can jump in here and say, I don't think there are pros and cons to visiting campus. It definitely is a lot of effort. That can be, a financial burden, a time burden. So I think definitely we don't expect students and our waitlisted students to meet with us face to face. So we definitely don't have that expectation for you as far as showing your interest in our school. That's why, just the best thing you can do is send us that letter of continued interest. But definitely, we're not going to discourage you from visiting our campus. We'll be happy to meet with you, happy to meet with you face to face and talk to you. You get a chance to explore campus if that's of interest to you. And I know I'm always happy to meet waitlisted students and talk to them, walk them through the process, answer any questions they have. We get to talk about Notre Dame. So definitely pros and cons is up to you. It's not going to be held against you if you don't visit our campus. That can be a huge burden, but if you want to, you are more than welcome to. We will welcome you with open arms. So really up to each individual person. I don't know if Kyle, if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think you're spot on. It is one of those things where obviously, that place is interested in you and wants to, keep open the option. You've impressed the committee, but didn't quite make the initial set of offers. And so, you want to make sure if you're still interested, make sure you're ready to move quickly. You might only have a few days if you're admitted off the wait list to make a decision. That usually happens really fast. And so you want to think about, would you say yes or no? And if you wouldn't say yes, then don't stay on the list. Because obviously any place that would make an offer off the wait list, they want to make sure that that's going to be a yes. They don't want to make a bunch of offers. If they're looking to add 10 more students, they want to make 20 offers. They want to make 10 or 11 or 12 offers.
Right. I think that's a good point that I just want to echo, that when you are waitlisted, you do receive a letter that says you want to remain on the wait list. And so if that's not a school for you, if you got into a school that you want to go to more or whatever, it is important to take yourself off that wait list so that you're not considered when they go to make these types of decisions. We did get one question from someone here, and they wrote, I was waitlisted at a top school last cycle and again this cycle. My first decision was a waitlist at another top school. Fortunately, this cycle, I applied to 12 more schools instead of just my dream school. I'm concerned that I won't be accepted into any institution. I'm graduating from community college this semester. If I don't get accepted anywhere, what will happen and what should I do? This is a tough one.
It is. I should have gone first. So, obviously, so the really smart thing that sounds like you've done is you've cast a fairly wide net. If you have a strong academic record from your two-year college and you're finishing your associate's degree, then that work at your two-year college is what matters most, less so anything out of the high school career. And so, if you're bringing forward, something in that kind of like, B plus, A minus GPA, and you've taken appropriate courses for what you want to pursue, you're going to have some offers, with casting a net of 12. Generally speaking, at a lot of places, transfer admission is selective, but not as insanely selective as first year admission can be. And the places where I've worked, it's a little bit more formulaic. It's like, okay, if you want to be, a psychology major and you have a good liberal arts foundation and you have strong marks in any psychology courses that you've taken so far, then you're going to have a reasonable opportunity to be considered there. So don't lose hope, don't panic, and do know that there's only going to be so much within your control. It's often something about spots in a department. And, for example, at Cornell, we have to make sure we have a space for every student because you're being reviewed by that department for admission if you're a transfer student. Versus with first years, it's a lot more, hey, we like you at the university, and less so about we have to have a spot in that exact major from day one. So I think you're on the right path right now by putting forward 12 applications plus your first one. It wouldn't hurt to have someone critique, a friend or somebody critique your materials and think about, is there a reason why perhaps something didn't quite rise to the top the last time, and is there something you can address? So.
Great, thank you for addressing that. Another question that I have is, what is the latest that someone can be pulled off of a wait list? So let's say it's, I don't know, let's say it's July. Could someone be coming off of a wait list in July? And what happens then if they've already kind of made their peace with the decision that was, that they were given, or what happens if they've already deposited somewhere? I mean, what are the scenarios that they might be facing?
All right, I'll start. I often have to hesitate not to talk too much, but we, in my 19 years at Cornell admissions, we have done everything from not admitted a single student off the wait list and then just taking deposits on May 1 and said, like, we're bulging at the seams. May 2nd deposit is a no-go, to admitting 300 or so. And of course, our first year class is usually around 3,300 students. So to admitting 300 or more students off the wait list. And then, wait list, especially with first year admission, is a trickle down effect. So for us anyways, if our peers go to the wait list in mid-June, sometimes they're taking students who have deposited at Cornell and suddenly we need to fill some spots. And so it's a chain reaction of sometimes it's just kind of nice if all of your peers are done, by Memorial Day. And then you can kind of feel like, all right, we're pretty confident with this little bit of cushion that we have and we can wrap up. But there was one year, it was late June before we closed our wait list, because, everyone kept on taking students and we didn't want to fall short of filling the residence halls. And that's a big thing with first year classes, is you don't want to have empty beds in the residence hall.
Yeah, I do know of people who have gotten off the wait list, very late into the summer, and it can definitely be tough. But like you said, it is a trickle down effect. So oftentimes you're getting pulled off the wait list at a school that maybe you are more excited about, or that you'd be more interested in going to. So it can be a tough spot to be in, not a bad spot, but a tough spot. And it's such an interesting thing to see. I'm sure many of you are on Reddit and you'll see and hear about, schools that are pulling students off a wait list and what that might mean for, other schools. So it's interesting. It's an interesting spot to be in. I have another question about double depositing. So what if a student just can't make their mind up, and their enrollment deadline is coming up for one school and maybe they have a little bit more time for another school? I mean, what is the stance about depositing at more than one institution?
I would venture to say not recommended. I will let Kyle, give his thoughts on that. But we hope that really, if you're putting that deposit down, you are committing to Notre Dame. That's kind of the purpose of the deposit, or whatever institution you choose to put your deposit down at. That's kind of your commitment to enrolling and being part of that graduating class. So definitely not recommended to commit both places. It is a tough decision, and we recognize that. But you got to filter through and make that one decision and commit, to the one.
Okay, I have one question about being denied. If I'm denied, should I reapply? And will my previous application count against me? So is it worth my time to reapply? And does what happened before count?
It's a solid, it depends. Now, some places will give you some feedback if you ask. And like for us anyways, I work with all veteran applicants at the undergraduate level. And frankly, if one of you applies to Cornell and is denied and you'd like to get feedback, I'll go in and dig through the application a little bit and try to give you something to build upon. And so, for example, if there's something simple like, all right, come back to that psychology major, you don't even have intro to psych, you're not going to be admitted. You could go but you have good grades, you can go and take intro to psych and, reapply for spring, for example. So it really depends upon, what's the issue. If it's a course or two, if it's an overall, not academically competitive for the program, then that's, certainly tougher to fix. Never hurts to ask.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we just had a question come in that was that if I don't get admitted to a school, will they give me reasons why I wasn't admitted in order to be competitive for next year? So it sounds like, some schools will do that. But like you said, sometimes it is enough for a school to say your application wasn't competitive, and that's, true for highly selective schools in general, right? We know that those are difficult institutions to get into in the first place. So sometimes that is enough of an answer. But then it is really great if someone can come back and say, yeah, you can beef up your coursework a little bit more, or we, recommend this. And I find that that's the case with most of our partner schools, that they'll be willing to tell you, as an applicant, a service to school applicant, that, here's what you can do differently. But it's okay if some schools say it's just not, your application's just not competitive. Let's see if there are any other questions. Let's see, here's one. Is it possible that I got denied just because I applied too late, round 3 or 4, and can apply next year at round 1 with the same application? This seems a little bit like a grad school-ish kind of question where there are rounds to apply. But do you mind addressing like an early decision, early action versus regular decision, what those are, and whether that does make a difference in like when you can be accepted?
So I can speak to Notre Dame and our policies. So for restrictive early action, that deadline is November 1st. So that restrictive part it's not a binding process for us. That restrictive is we ask you don't apply early decision or binding to other schools. And then our second deadline is regular decision on January 1st. We don't have a preference for which deadline you choose to apply by. So we want to see your application when it's the strongest. We don't read them any differently. We don't have a preference one or the other. Our admit rate is about the same for each of those. And we do try to make it pretty equal. So really, we just want to see your application when it's the strongest. So if you needed to wait till a later round or a later deadline, that is more than okay. And I think, our peer institutions feel similarly. You get the benefit of, receiving your decision a little bit earlier if you choose to apply earlier. If you choose to apply, that early decision or binding, then you will have that binding aspect to it. And that, you signed the contract that you will attend. But as far as, us, it's really just the benefit of you find out earlier. But as far as how we read it and your admission possibility, it is the same.
Yeah, similar. In our first year process doesn't matter as much. Do you apply at the deadline or a month in advance? Whichever program. With transfers, it matters a little bit more, and that's because you do need to have a spot in that department. So, for example, our transfer applicant deadline for fall was March 15th. Now, technically, the application is still open through a week or two from now. And are you penalized for applying tomorrow? No, but it means your application will be reviewed later, and no one knows how many applications are eventually going to come in, and so they're already reading. And let's say that psychology department, they only had 10 spots for transfers this year, and they already have 10 students they're excited about, by next week. Well, if you don't apply till next week, then obviously, in that case, it did hurt you because of that whole, spots available thing. So it hurts. I guess it's more likely to be a little bit of a disadvantage if you're talking about someplace that does rolling notification and rolling decisions versus someplace like first year typically is all the decisions go out on one date, and all we have to do is be ready to roll with everybody's decision by, for example, this year the Ivy date was March 30th.
Excellent. And then I have one more question, which is about what if an applicant has questions about credits, once they're admitted and they kind of figure out where they're falling in terms of sophomore or junior, if they're applying as a transfer, obviously. And what about housing? So what if this is someone who does have a family or someone who's older? How do your institutions manage, the credits and the housing, and what would you recommend that they do?
Yeah, so as far as credits and things like that, if you're a first year student, you're going to have a first year advisor, and they can, help guide you with those transfer credits, maybe AP credits, things like that. If you have like dual enrollment or AP, there's a form you can fill out so they can review it. So that goes through our first year studies. And kind of similarly, if you're a transfer student, we read all those transfer applications and all those credits, but those are going to be handled more by the academies, the different colleges, and making sure that they'll cover that transfer credit and make sure that everything carries over. So they're the best resource for that. But definitely if you're a first year student, you're definitely going to have more of that guidance from that first year advisor to kind of make sure that anything from high school really carries over.
Okay, awesome. Well, I am again so grateful that Kyle and Montanna could be here. Oh, I'm sorry. I saw one question here in the chat that I did not see earlier. As a transfer student awaiting transfer decisions, should we be reaching out to our contacts at the admissions offices or the veterans offices? Does reaching out show our dedication, or is that seen negatively?
Yeah, it's a fine line to balance. Positively, if you have questions, do reach out. And if you have updates, new things, it is important to share those with us. And so, for example, you can upload through your applicant portal some new information, but you could also email it to us, and then it kind of keeps that person's, keeps your name in front of that person's, mind. And so never a bad thing, within reason. Sometimes the people's name that I really remember is because they're emailing over and over and over and over and over again, just with really trivial little things. So by all means, we're here if you have questions, but don't kind of cross that threshold of, sort of like recommendations. We require 1, 2 is fine, but don't send us 11 recommendations. There is a point where it just becomes too much. And so we're here, we want to know that you're serious. Mostly demonstrate that through your application, demonstrate knowledge of our universities, knowledge of the programs, don't just have everything be generic. But if you have updates, we want to hear them. And if you're super interested and we are your top choice or something like that, then by all means, everyone loves to feel the love from their applicants.
Excellent. That's good. That's good advice. I remember getting a lot of those too many emails from the same person. Yeah. Okay, well, again, and I'm still grateful that Kyle and Montanna joined us this afternoon so that we can learn more about admissions decisions. I'm happy, again, my name is Annie B. Harry. I am happy to answer any questions that you have or to direct you to either Kyle or Montanna if you would like to talk to them further. And this session will be sent out afterwards. So thank you again for joining us, and thank you, Montanna and Kyle.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.